Already mic testing, mic testing. Okay, perfect. Let me go to my main camera. Already, what's up, guys? Okay, wait, honestly, I didn't want to, try doing a different kind of opening. That said, okay, we're live, and as you guys can tell by the title and thumbnail, today I'm going to be working on, how do we load images slash PNGs in C++, actually in SDL3 using C++. That said, last stream I did tell you guys that I was going to go over gravity in SDL3, but I thought it'd be a much cooler topic to go with images and then work with gravity to actually gravitationally pull the image downwards. If that made any sense, guys. That said, let's go to my gameplay screen. Okay, and guys, I didn't have time to set a new chat today because I took me I think about 3 to 4 hours to actually figure out on how do I even get my SDL image library, because I had to download a different file and add it inside of my environment variable. If that made any sense. That said, let's say something like, let's say I'm live, and guys, honestly, there are not any SDL3 tutorials on how we actually set it in SDL3, because it took way too long to actually figure this out. That said, give me a sec. Let me actually open my stream on my phone to check if it's sometimes lagging or not. Okay, give me a sec, guys. There we go. Okay, that said, let me go ahead and remove OBS from here. Alright, perfect. Yeah, people, listen up. Today is the day we turn struggle into mastery. Every line of code you touch is a step closer to being unstoppable. No excuses. No, it doesn't work. Only victory. Alright, let's dive into your PNG adding section step by step. Again, guys, this I did adding code here to test if it actually did work. It took a lot of figuring and trial and error to even get this code, because I feel like since slash chat GPT is actually still stuck with the SDL2 type stuff. That said, okay, let's read the whole thing. So, initializing SDL. If SDL underscore init, okay, we do know this part. If my SDL underscore init did not initialize properly, I'm going to give me this error. Then actually use a function that gets me an error. Then return one after having a new line. Then I create my window and my render at the same time. Know that as well. Now, this is the complicating part. Loading a PNG as a texture. Okay, so SDL underscore texture. So we're creating a texture as a structure, which is going to be having a pointer of my texture variable. Okay, actually my textures pointer here consists of all the attributes of my SDL underscore texture, and then I go ahead and use the image underscore load texture function, which requires two parameters. The first parameter is going to be our render variable. The second parameter is going to be the file path for our PNG. Okay, I did go to my what was that called, my solution explorer, and then I went to open file in browser. Actually, open file, yeah, I think it's open file in Explorer. After that, I did create an assets folder, then and added all my PNGs to it that I'm going to be using. If that made any sense, guys. So I'm going to be using assets slash maze.png. If you guys didn't do that, you guys could give your actual file paths to your PNG slash image. That said, we go with something like if not texture. If my texture did not initialize properly or something like that didn't happen, I'm going to do something. I'll go with a standard C error with an insertion operator. I'm going to say SDL underscore load texture error with another insertion operator that gets me an error. Okay, and then I go with SDL underscore destroy renderer. Okay, and then SDL underscore destroy window with a window parameter. And then SDL underscore quit. Honestly, I haven't ever destroyed a renderer. Doesn't it automatically get destroyed? Okay, and then inside my main event loop, wait, should I destroy it? What up, guys? Okay, so this is the code that I did try first. Okay, apparently after oh, I see. Okay, so if my texture was not rendered properly, it's honestly the same as my I didn't add a section here, but after my SDL underscore create window and renderer, I usually do add a if statement to check if my window slash renderer was not created properly. So I go with something like if a of parentheses. I'll go with something like if not. What up, guys? So there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and add something like if not window or not renderer. If either my window or my renderer was not created properly, I firstly go ahead and add a standard C error with an insertion operator. This gives me something like a SDL underscore create window and renderer error. So there we go. Again, guys, ignore the background voices. That said, I'm gonna go ahead. What up, guys? Let me actually mute myself for a bit. Already mic testing, mic testing. Guys, I do apologize for the inconvenience. I had to go and say, whatchamacallit, like decrease the volume because I feel like the background noises were getting too loud. Okay, that said, where was I? Let's get to this last ChatGPT back here. Okay, yeah, I remember. So, I was checking my window or my render was not created properly. If it was not, I'm gonna go with another insertion operator and use the function that actually gets me an error. So, I'll go with something like a standard get error. So, I'll go with something like a standard get error. Okay, actually not a standard SDL underscore get error function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm gonna go with another insertion operator, and then I'll go with something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if my window or render was not initialized properly, firstly, I do want to exit my SDL, so I'll go with something like SDL underscore quit with a pair of parentheses, ending with a semicolon. Then I do want to return one saying something went wrong in this block of code. Check it out. Okay, now after that, I load a PNG as a texture. Excuse me guys, a PNG image as a texture. This part is something new and it was kind of complicating. Okay guys, let me increase the volume a bit. Can you guys actually hear me? Okay, I think it's actually pretty good. Okay, that said, after that, so first I go ahead and create a SDL underscore textures structure and then a pointer to that structure. Okay, then I use the image underscore load textures this function that requires two parameters, my renderer and my file path. And then I check if my texture was not rendered properly. I go with a standard C error, add an insertion operator. I'm gonna give myself a SDL underscore load textures as error. Okay, and then I go with another insertion operator and use the function that actually gets me an error. And then I go with something like a standard end line. Okay, I see. And after that, I go ahead and destroy my renderer. If my texture was not created properly, I also destroy my window and then I quit my SDL and return 1. Okay, I think that was pretty self-explanatory. Okay, I think I actually get it. What up guys, let's get some Z/ChatGPT here. Okay, I go ahead and clear my render, do all that stuff. I think I see. Event polling keeps your window interactive, close button, quit, render. Okay, and then just for my cleanup, I destroy my texture, I destroy my render, and I destroy my window as well. Okay guys, I don't know why there's so many virtual kisses here. That said, I do want to try it on my own, so I could start off by firstly deleting everything. And guys, I haven't like practiced with this code much because I didn't have much time to do it. That said, let's go ahead and start off by including IO stream because I will be I'll be working with user outputs. And then since I am going to be using SDL3, let's go ahead and include SDL3 slash SDL.h. SDL.h is basically all the header files for SDL. And now, since I am also going to be using the image section of SDL, let's go ahead and include a pair of ankle braces again. I'm going to go with something like SDL3 underscore image slash, let's go with something like SDL, okay, I forgot. What was the second part to include? Guys, I didn't memorize this include function. What if I go with shift space? There we go. I went with control space. That does write it. Okay, so SDL3 underscore image and then SDL underscore image dot h. I'm assuming that is the header files as well. Okay, now that I'm done with that, let's go ahead and create a main function. So I'll go with something like integer main, add a pair of parentheses. Now, inside of a main function, I'm going to be adding a few parameters. Let's say the first parameter is going to be an integer of argc and the second parameter is going to be a character, okay, which is going to be a pointer for my argwises array, if that made any sense, guys. Okay, and then let's go with a pair of curly braces. And now, inside my main function, let's go ahead and initialize SDL and also check if my SDL was not initialized properly. So I'll go with something like if, let's say something like not, if not SDL underscore init with a pair of parentheses, SDL underscore init underscore video. If my SDL is video section or my SDL was not initialized properly, I'm going to do something. Firstly, I'll go with a standard C error and then add an insertion operator. I'm going to be giving myself a standard, actually I'll give myself an SDL underscore init error. And guys, yeah, these errors are basically the function names itself, so it's easier to like actually check which section did we get an error on. That's it. I'm going to go in a new line, add another insertion operator. This time, I'm going to go ahead and use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore get error function with a pair of parentheses. And then let's add another insertion operator and go with a standard end line, ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's go ahead and return one saying something went wrong with this block of code. Check it out. Okay, now after I'm done initializing my SDL, let's go ahead and create my window and render. Although before I do create my window and renderer, I do want to add a few game variables. For example, my windows is width and height. I'm going to be adding those as one of my game variables and stuff like hard coding the numbers when I do create my window. If that made any sense, guys. To do that, I could add a comment that says something like game variables. So there we go. Okay, now after I add my game variables, I'm going to be, let's say, I'm going to be creating a constant integer variable called something like width. This is going to be my Windows width, which is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe 800 pixels per frame, ending with a semicolon. And then I'll go with something like a constant integer of height, which is going to be 600 pixels, ending with a semicolon. Okay, now that's honestly pretty much it. I'm not going to be adding velocities just yet because I don't want to like automate my, actually I don't want to move my PNGs using my keys just yet because I'm just learning on how it works. That's it. Now let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like create window. There we go, create window and renderer. Okay, now for my create window and renderer, I'm going to be using a function that actually creates my window and renderer at the same time. But before that, I will be creating two local variables, one that consists of all my window attributes and one that consists of all my render attributes. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore windows structure, which is going to be, let's say something like a pointer of my windows. Let's say something like, what you may call it, a pointer of my windows is local variable consists of all the attributes of my SDL underscore windows structure. If that made any sense, guys. Okay, I'm going to be setting that to null PDR, ending with a semicolon. Now after that, let's do the same exact thing for my renderer. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore renderer, which is going to be having a local variable slash a local variable pointer. Is that what we call it? Like a local pointer of, let's say, something like my renderer. I'm going to be setting it to be a null PDR as well because I didn't add a value for them just yet. That's it. Now let's go ahead and use the function that creates my window and renderer at the same time. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore create window and let's go with something like and renderer function. This function creates both my window and my renderer at the same time, although it does require a few parameters. The first parameter that is going to be requiring is going to be a title slash a caption for my window. I could go with something like SDL3 window created. Okay, I could just go with something like SDL3 window created, and then I'll add a comma here. The second and third parameter is going to be my windows' width and height slash my width and height variable here. So instead of going with 800 and 600, I could go with something like width, which is technically 800, and height, which is technically 600. Okay, hold up. I think I messed my spelling up. There we go. Okay, did I like make a typo here? H-E-I-G-H-T. Oh, I didn't add a H here. There we go. What up, guys? I think I messed something up. Okay, there we go. Okay, now after adding my width and height, let's go ahead and my fourth parameter is gonna be a window flag. Basically, window flags are it gives your window some superpowers. For example, if I didn't want to add a flag, I could go with 0, but I do want to add a flag that makes my window resizable so it can be extended or shrunk as well. To do that, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore window underscore resizable. I'm assuming this is like a keyword. Okay, because I know this is not a function. Let's see. So it basically says it's just like a hashtag define. It's like it doesn't say whether or not this is like a keyword or a function because I know it's not a function. So I'll think of this as a keyword. That said, next up I'm gonna be needing the memory address of my window local variable and my renderer local variable. Okay, as my fifth and sixth parameter, to get the memory address, I could go and use the address of operator slash ampersand of my window, and then let's go with something like an ampersand of renderer. Okay, so there we go. Alright, perfect. And now from what's up, KSI? Guys, I'm actually not KSI. Okay, that said, after I'm done creating my window and my renderer, let's go ahead and add an if statement to check if they were actually created properly. To do that, I could go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not window, if my window was not created properly, or if my renderer was not created properly. I'm gonna do something. I think long story, I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that said, I'm gonna check if my window and renderer was not created properly, and if they were not, I'm gonna go with a standard C error with an insertion operator. This is gonna give me a long error, so I might go in a new line and then add an insertion operator. Okay, this is gonna give me an SDL underscore create a window and renderer error. So there we go. And guys, yes, this is like my function name here because like I feel it's easier to like spot the error if I do know what function it is coming from. That's it. I'm going to go in a new line, add another insertion operator. This time, let's go ahead and actually use the function that actually gets me an error. To do that, I could use the SDL underscore get errors function with a pair of parentheses to invoke the function, and then I'll go with an insertion operator with a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if either my window or my renderer was not, created properly, firstly, I do want to exit my SDL. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore quit with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. Then I'm going to return 1 ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. Now that I've created my window and my renderer, let's see. Okay, I feel this is where the harder part comes. Let's say something like load images. So I'll go with a comment that says something like load images. Okay, I might have forgotten how we do this. Was it something like the SDL underscore texture? Okay, so let's see. I forgot the structure. Was it okay? Is that structures, variable, constant, functions? Excuse me, guys. Types, enums, namespaces. Okay, guys, hold up. Let's get to this last GPT here. I just want to see what was the function name because I feel like I forgot the function name. Okay, it's SDL underscore texture, so I was going correct, and then I gotta use the image load texture function, give my render as the first parameter, and then give my file path as the second parameter, and then I check if my texture was not created properly, if that made any sense. And if it was not, I'm gonna destroy my renderer, destroy my window, then quit my SDL, returning 1. I think I see. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore textures as structure, which is going to be having a pointer of something like texture. There we go, guys. I still don't know how to phrase this part properly. So it's like SDL underscore texture is a structure, and my pointer consists of all the attributes of my SDL underscore texture. Okay, I'm going to be setting that equal to image underscore, I forgot the function name again. Okay, image load texture. I'm pretty sure it was that function, so I'm going to go with image load texture with a pair of parentheses. Now, my image load texture function is going to be having 2 parameters. First is going to be my render parameter, and the second is going to be a file, my file path. Okay, so maybe I could go in a new line. Now, first I'm going to add my renderer, a local variable, slash my renderer's pointer, and then I'll add a comma. And then let's go with a pair of double quotes and give my file path. So my file path is going to be in my assets. So I'll go with something like assets slash, maybe I'll go with something like mage.png. Okay, that is my file path, guys. And then let's go ahead and end the whole thing with a semicolon. So, okay, and that's pretty much it for creating my texture. Now let's go ahead and check if my texture was not created properly. To do that, I could go with something like if, a pair of parentheses. I'm going to go with something like if not texture. I'm going to do something if my texture was not created properly. Firstly, I'm going to be adding a standard C error with an insertion operator. This is going to give me something like, I don't know, should I go with SDL underscore texture error? I could actually. I'll go with something like SDL underscore texture error. There we go. Okay, and then after I'm done adding my SDL underscore texture error, firstly, let's go ahead and add another insertion operator and use the function that actually gets me an error. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore get errors function. This function gets me the error, and then I'll go with another insertion operator, use a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. Now, if my texture was not created properly, firstly, apparently I gotta, destroy my renderer, destroy my window, and then quit my SDL, returning 1. So let's go with something like SDL underscore, let's go with something like a destroy window. So I'll go with destroy window with a pair of parentheses. This is going to be my window variable ending with a semicolon. And then I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy renderer with a pair of parentheses. This is going to be my renderer local variable as well. And then let's go with something like SDL underscore quit ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's go ahead and return 1. Okay, and that's very much it for my texture. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't need anything else for my texture. Okay, with that said, in that case, let's go ahead and add my main loop now. So I'll go with something like main loop. And now for my main loop, firstly, let's go ahead and create a boolean variable called something like is running. Okay, bro, how do you know this? Honestly, I did like whatchamacallit learn it because like I haven't like learned this whole thing like whatchamacallit in streams because like today morning only I just woke up and I spent like 4 hours trying to figure out how to actually whatchamacallit set my Visual Studio so it can actually take images that made any sense. Okay, which compiler are you using? Honestly, I feel like it starts with M. It's something like Mystic or something. I actually forgot my compiler. It was something like M. I'm pretty sure it was something like Mystic X or something. So happy people like him exist. Honestly, I appreciate you. Opmission, is that how you pronounce your name? Okay, that actually means a word to me, guys. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna set my boolean is running to be set to true, ending with a semicolon. Now, after that, I will be needing one more variable for my event. So I'm gonna be creating an event variable because I will be like iterating over that variable to like check what event is currently going on. To do that, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore events structure, which is going to be having an event variable ending with a semicolon. So my event variable consists of all the attributes of my SDL underscore events structure. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and add a while loop now. So this is going to be a main game loop. For my while loop, firstly, let's go with something like a is running boolean variable. What up, guys? Something just popped up in the other window. There we go. Okay, let's go with something like a is running boolean variable. And then I'm going to go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside of my outer while loop, I'm going to be adding a event loop. So there's going to be another while loop. So a while loop inside of a while loop slash a nested loop. Let's go with something like another while, a pair of parentheses. Let's go with something like while SDL underscore poll event. Basically, what SDL underscore poll event function does is it like looks for what all events I'm actually looking for. For example, if I like add a if statement inside of my while loop, looking for whatchamacallit, let's say quit event. If that quit event is actually met, my quit event is gonna run and change stuff. Okay, so this is really important, like check the current event I'm looking for. It does require a parameter of the memory address of my event variable. Okay, now let's go ahead and add an event type. So I'll go with something like, I think Aditya, is our pronounce your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. That said, now let's go ahead and add an if statement to look for an event type. What up, guys? There we go. I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if my event dot type equals to I don't know, let's go with something like SDL underscore event underscore quit. If my event type is quit, if my user did click the top right X button, then I'm going to do something. I'm going to set my is running boolean variable to be equal to false, ending with a semicolon. That ends my entire loop. Just quiet and do code, please. Just quiet and do code. Honestly, I feel like it, whatchamacallit, I do like, say it out loud because it does help me understand better if I can actually teach it. So like, because if you do teach stuff, you don't understand it better. That said, I think, Archie, is that your pronounce your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that's it. Now that I'm done with my while loop, I'm going to be exiting outside of my event loop. And then let's go and add a comment that says something like fill screen. I'm going to be filling my screen now. Okay, because if I didn't fill my screen would be like a black color. That said, let's say I want to fill my screen with something like a, let's say a gray color this time. I always usually fill it with cyan. This time I'm going to go with gray. So firstly, before I do fill my screen with gray color, I do gotta set a color for my render because my render is basically like a paintbrush that colors my stuff that I tell it to color. That said, Burger Mang. Okay, hi doing Big Shot. I appreciate you joining the stream. That said, let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore set render. So I'm gonna set my render to draw a color. So I'll go with the SDL underscore set render draw color function. This function sets a color to my renderer, but it does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer variable. The second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGBA value. RGB is just the RGB color. If you guys don't know what it does mean, like red, green, and blue. And A stands for alpha, which is opacity, how transparent or how not transparent an object is going to be. That said, let's say my RGB is going to be something like 200, 200, 200, which is a good gray color. My alpha slash opacity is going to be 255, which means my color won't be transparent at all. Then I'm going to go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Okay, and then after I'm done setting a color with my renderer, let's use the function that fills my screen or colors my entire screen gray. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore. I'm telling my renderer to clear my entire screen. So I'll go with render clear. This fills my entire screen with a semicolon. Do you need job? Honestly, guys, I am jobless. That's why I'm not actually looking for a job because I still feel like I'm really unskilled, guys. I should actually refine my skills. That's what I'll go with something like renderer, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. After I'm done filling my screen, let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like graphics. Okay, where did you learn coding from YouTube or Udemy? Honestly, I learned coding using like ChatGPT because like I've usually just used ChatGPT a lot when it comes to like programming and everything because I feel it was like really helpful when it came to like actually teaching me stuff. That's it today morning as well. Like when I was learning how to like load PNGs or like images in like SDL3 using C++, there was not a single YouTube tutorial out there. I was like, how do I even fix this? Then later I went to like ChatGPT. It took me about 4ish hours, but at the end I was like done with like actually loading it in. Now I could like actually load my my SDL3's image header files, if that made any sense, guys. Okay, that said, after I'm done adding my graphics as comment, actually think about it. I don't think I might need graphics here. I might have to load my images. So, okay, honestly, I feel like I don't need a graphics. I might just go with something like present because I feel like graphics is like when I draw something on my screen. So to present, I could go with something like SDL underscore. I'm saying my render to present itself because without the render present function, I wouldn't be able to like present my render. You guys wouldn't see any color on the screen. All you guys would see is either black or white. Okay, where did you learn? Okay, honestly, I did learn using ChatGPT. I usually like only either programming when I do stream because like I'm busy off stream. That said, have you know about Fruit Library for IoT OLED display and all? Honestly, I haven't like learned about that yet. That said, I might actually try that. I have been going through the very basics of SDL3 to like I've been like going like every single stream and like mastering of basics and moving a little higher and higher, if that made any sense, guys. That said, next up, after I'm done presenting my screen, I won't honestly add I won't be adding FPS right now because I'm not like moving anything or like automate something. Okay, so I'll go with something like cleanup. Now, for my cleanup, firstly, let's go ahead and destroy my window. So I'll go with SDL underscore destroy window function. So this function destroys my window, but it does require my window parameter. Then let's go ahead and say something like SDL underscore destroy texture. I'm going to destroy my texture. This is something new from like the previous streams that I usually do. Okay, this is going to be my texture pointer as well, and then I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy renderer. I'm going to destroy my renderer as well with a pair of parentheses. This is going to have my render parameter. Lastly, I'm going to quit my SDL, so I'll go with SDL underscore quit. So there we go, with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. Now, lastly, let's go ahead and return 0. Okay, now let's see if it actually does work. Okay, what are you creating? Honestly, I'm learning how to load PNGs in like SDL3, C++. That's it. If I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, so I get my first window pop up. Okay, let's wait for my second window. Okay, my second window did pop up as well, but I don't actually see my PNG here. Did I like miss a step or something? So, okay, I did like create a render. I'm pretty sure I like definitely missed a step here. That said, I'll go with Control A Control C. Let's get some /ChatGPT up here. Let's go ahead and paste the Shift Enter and say something like, let's say, I feel like I missed a step, maybe question mark. I don't see my PNG on my screen. I think Big Shot, I appreciate you joining the stream. That said, oh people, you're so close, but yes, you missed a crucial step. Actually drawing the texture to the render before presenting. Right now, your code does this. Clears the screen to gray, sets the draw color, but never copies the texture onto the render before SDL underscore render present. Okay, so you need this line before presenting, so SDL underscore render texture, so I did need a graphic. That requires 4 parameter, my render parameter, my texture parameter, and 2 null PDRs. Okay, your loop should be something like this. So I fill my screen with a color, then I add texture, and then I present. And guys, why did I love kissing emojis today like ChatGPT? I actually didn't say ChatGPT. It's so sensei to say those things. Okay, actually to use the emojis, my bad, guys. Okay, now before I do present it, let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like graphics. Okay, for my graphics, let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore render texture function. So I'm gonna say my render to like render my texture. Okay, what are you learning it for? Web dev or game dev? Honestly, I'm just learning it for. Is it not pre-recorded? Honestly, it's not pre-recorded. That said, I'm actually not eventually I don't want to like major in like software engineering because I do enjoy making games, but I feel like I'm gonna be enjoying making AI more than games. So I do eventually want to be an AI engineer and like make actual games. Okay, no live. Honestly, many of you guys do say me that. I mean, do ask me that. Is this live? What you call it? Is this live like pre-recorded? But I'm like, guys, I read the chats. I read the chats live. It's actually not pre-recorded. That's it. Let's see all the parameters that I'm going to be requiring. So I need a render parameter, a texture parameter, a SRC rect, is that how you pronounce it? And a disrect, a DST rect. Okay, I don't know what those are, but since it does say me that I need a pointer of those or like the memory address of those, I'm gonna go with something like null PDR, means no pointer. If it didn't say me to add a pointer, then I would have just gone with like uppercase nulls, ending with a semicolon. Now, if I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens this time. I get my first window. There we go, guys. And guys, I did actually like draw this because like from when I had my Python for 100 series, I did like use a lot of PNGs. I've been waiting. I did like make a lot of sound effects as well for like, for example, the gulp sound effect and like the walking sound effect type stuff. That said, I do see it, but it's oversized. I want to change its size. Source rectangle. I see. Okay, that's it. Let's go with Control A, Control C, copy that. Let's get /GPT here. Let's paste it. Go with Shift Enter and say something like say it works exclamation. That said, it is very big. How to resize it? Question mark. Okay, let's see how to resize it. That's it. I would like want to add those a bunch of times, but I do want to see how to like scale it as well. That's it. Ah, yes, people. Finally, I can see those tears of joy, guys. I'm not tearing, but I was tearing when I actually figured out how to like actually load the image first. I think it was like 5 hours from now or something. That's it. Now listen carefully. Your texture is huge because right now you're telling SDL to draw it stretched over the entire window. Both null PDRs mean take the whole image, fill the windows. Okay, fill the whole window. That's why it's gigantic. To resize, you need SDL rect S. Okay, so SDL rect, dest rect. Okay, so we have our SDL rect. Shouldn't this be F rect? I'm pretty sure it should be F rect. What IDE do you use? Honestly, I use Visual Studio. Man, try to use some docs. Honestly, guys, I did like use docs the first time I ever like started SDL like for the day one, because like I felt like ChatGPT wouldn't actually teach me properly on how to like use SDL, but I think I was wrong, guys. I kind of underestimated ChatGPT. Okay, that said, after I'm done adding those, I add the positions, x-axis, y-axis, width and height. Then I add a parameter for my dest rect. Okay, first null PDR equals to the whole source image, second argument where and how big to draw the screen. You can make W and H whatever you want. Pupil challenge. I want you to draw the mage in the top left corner, 150. Okay, I think I see. Although I think that the the dest for my rect is gonna be above my main loop, so I might go with something like rectangle properties. So there we go. So I'll go with rectangle properties, and then let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore FREX structure. I know since ChatGPT did say me to use rect, but I think like in SDL3 we do use FREC. This is going to be having a parameter of something like DST rect. So there we go. Ending with a semicolon. Okay, you can see what parameters do current call. You can see what parameters do for current call. Honestly, if I do hover over it, it does like say me what parameters I need. For example, here it says I need like an event parameter. That's it. I'm going to go ahead and do something here. Okay, I went with frect and then I created, this should be a semicolon, there we go. Okay, now I'm gonna do something like dst rect dot x-axis. It's gonna be in the top left, so let's go with something like 0, okay, ending with a semicolon. Top left, so I'll go with something like dst rect dot y-axis. So what up guys, there we go. dst rect dot y-axis is going to be something like 0 as well. I'm going to set it equal to 0, ending with a semicolon. Let's set that equal to 0 as well. And then I need a width and height. So let's go with something like dst rect dot width, which is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe 100 pixels. And then I'll go with something like dst rect dot y-axis, actually dot height, which is going to be 100 pixels as well, ending with a semicolon. That's it. I don't know what DST means. I might have to ask that. Okay, now all I gotta do is add the memory address. So I'll go with something like the address of operator for my DST rect. All the way here. Maybe I go into new line so you guys can see it as well. There we go. Okay, perfect. Now for it controllers to save the code and run the command, apparently my PNG should be smaller. Okay, perfect guys. I see like a tiny PNG up there, but is it just me or it looks like a bit squished? Does it actually look squished? I mean, I think it is kind of big. Maybe I increase a width to something like 200. Let's go with something like 200. Now if I want to save the code and run the command, I get my first terminal up here. Okay, maybe that does look kind of good. I don't know. I think that looks kind of good. Okay, I'll go with something like Control-A, Control-C, copy that. Let's get some say/ChatGPT here. What up, guys? There we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and paste this. Go with Shift Enter. Say something like, say, it works! Exclamation. Although I did have a question. What does the DST mean in the DST rect? And I used a SDL underscore F rect instead of SDL underscore rect. Okay, let's see. Okay, yes, people, look at you using rectangles like a pro. Now let's break it down. DST rect is equal to destination rectangle. DST destination, this is where on the screen the image should go and how big it should be. The first node PDR, standard texture, the source of the rectangle. What part of the texture do you want drawn? Since it is not PDR, it means like take the whole image. Okay, tells draw it right here, and these are the coordinates. Source, what part of the image, dest, where to put it on the screen. I see. Okay, I think I see. That said, maybe I do want to try drawing it on my own this time. So I'll go with something like Control-A. Let's delete everything. Okay, let me try writing on my own to see if I actually understand how this works. That said, let me start off by including IO stream, and honestly, let me go ahead and include SDL3 as well, because I am going to be using SDL3. So I'll go with something like SDL3/SDL.h, which is SDL3 and SDL's header files. And then since I am going to be using images too, let's go ahead and include SDL3, okay, underscore image. Okay, I hope I'm doing this part correct. So SDL3 underscore image slash SDL3. Let's go with SDL.image. There we go. Guys, this part is kind of confusing because like this is the first time actually even like including this third header file. Okay, if I do go with shift space, it should write what I mean. So I'll go with image slash. There we go. Okay, so it's SDL underscore SDL3 underscore image slash SDL underscore image dot h, which stands for the header files. Day 14 of asking why you gay, guys. I'm actually not gay. That's it. If like you've been asking for so many days, I'm afraid I might become soon, guys. That was a joke. I'm actually not being gay. That's it. I feel like I'm pretty happy being like a guy. Okay, next up, let's go ahead and add a main function. So I'll go with the integer main. Now my main function is going to be requiring two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. Okay, why are you trying to talk like an American? Be proud of your race, guys. I feel like I talk like in which country I've been. That's it. Let's go ahead and create a character. Okay, my character is going to be something like an array of argv, which is going to be a pointer to an array of argv. And then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside of our main function, firstly, let me go ahead and initialize SDL and also check if it was not initialized properly. So I'll go with something like if, a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not SDL underscore init, if my SDL underscore init didn't go correctly. And also if my SDL underscore init underscore video, if the video section of my SDL was not initialized properly, I'm going to do something. Talk in Hindi. Honestly, guys, I feel like many of you guys do say me to like sometimes commentate in Hindi as well, but I do usually tell you guys I can actually speak a bit Hindi, but I'm not as fluent in it as I'm in English, so I won't be able to like express myself for the code that I'm trying to write as nice, like as properly as I do it in English, because like I don't know the vocabulary more in Hindi. That said, I am actually trying to learn different languages. Okay, so I'm gonna go with something like a standard C error with an insertion operator. I'm gonna go ahead and say this is an SDL underscore init error. Bartram, is that I pronounce your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. What programming language is this? Honestly, it is C++. That's it. Let's go ahead and add another insertion operator of something like, let's say something like a SDL underscore get error. This function actually gets me an error. Then let's go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Okay, does coding versus coding AI work? Does coding with versus AI work? Honestly, I would like actually recommend you guys, like not like recommend, like it depends on like few people the way they prefer learning. Like mostly I do prefer learning using AIs, but if we are actually learning with AIs, I would highly recommend you guys not to like get a block of code and just like using your program without understanding what it means, because like I feel that just like okay, that like ruins the point if that made any sense to actually learn. Okay, what do you study? Honestly, for the time being, I am like a college student. I'm like a freshman in college. That's it. I haven't like taken any programming courses. Although I'm really excited to someday take the programming courses. Okay, now after adding my if statement, after I'm done initializing my SDL, let's add a comment that says something like game variables. Okay, now I'm going to be adding a few game variables. Let's say, for example, I might need a variable for my Windows' width and height, so I could go with something like a constant integer of something like my width, which is going to be set to 800, ending with a semicolon. Then I'll go with something like a constant integer of height, which is going to be, did I spell it correct? There we go, which is going to be set to 600, ending with a semicolon. Hey, hi, don't mind you're so knowledgeable or got strong will to learn. I wish I had 10% of your will for my game development improvements while you're giving motivation, but don't know why it slips out. Honestly, that does make sense. I do like feel that a lot, guys, as well, because like I wouldn't tell you guys that I'm like complete like 100% productive, but I feel like if you guys could get yourself to like actually do one step again and again, even if you guys do feel bad, you guys will eventually get a reward for that. Okay, can you drop your GitHub here? Honestly, I do have a GitHub. It is like in my bio. That's it. I haven't like uploaded anything on my GitHub because like I didn't have time to like learn how to use GitHub. That's it. Let's add a comment that says something like create a window and a renderer. Okay, now I'm going to be creating my window and my renderer at the same time. To do that, first let's go ahead and create two local pointers. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore windows as structure, which is going to be having a pointer of my window variable that is going to be set to something like null period for the time being, which is like a placeholder. Okay, now bro, you're good. What university are you attending? Honestly, I didn't like join a university yet. That's it. I am actually a freshman in like college. Okay, that's how I go with something like SDL underscore render. I'm going to be creating a renderer now. Let's create a pointer for, let's say, my renderer local variable, which is going to be set to something like null ptr ending with a semicolon. Now let's go ahead and actually use the function that does create my window and renderer at the same time. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore create. What up, guys? There we go. SDL underscore create a window and a renderer variable with a pair of parentheses. Now, inside my create window and renderer function, I'm going to be adding a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be, okay, honestly, the first parameter is going to be a title slash a caption for my window. I could go ahead and add something like SDL3 window created. There we go. Okay, so that's a pretty good caption. Honestly, guys, I don't think if I should report this channel. With that said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and report this channel for child abuse, guys. Where's child abuse happening? Okay, that's it. Let's go ahead and add a width and a height variable now. So I'll go with something like my width variable and height variable, which is basically 800 by 600. And then let's add a comma. Now, my fourth parameter I'm using, okay, I think it's fourth parameter. Now, my fourth parameter is going to be, let's say, flag my window. If you guys didn't want to add a flag, you guys could set this to be 0. Although I am going to be adding a flag. I'll go with something like SDL underscore, let's say something like window underscore resizable. So I'll go with resizable. And then I'll add a comma. Now, my fifth and sixth parameter is going to be the memory address of my window local variable and my renderer local variable. To get the memory address, I could use the address of operator slash ampersand of something like window. And then I'll go with an ampersand of my renderer. Okay, what is this program for? Honestly, I am like trying to load a PNG on my window, if that made any sense, in SDL3 using C++. Okay, perfect. Now that I'm done creating my window and renderer, let's go ahead and add an if statement to check if they were actually created properly. To do that, I could go with something like if, a pair of parentheses. Let's go ahead and check something like if not window, if my window was not created properly, or if my renderer was not created properly, I'm gonna do something. Bro, why are you talking like ChatGPT? Guys, I feel like I've been influenced with Sensei slash ChatGPT for so long because I've been like using it to like study for like I think 2 or 3 years because like I like use ChatGPT even like learn my college stuff and all that stuff because I feel it is like a really good help learning tool. So I feel like sometimes I mean someplace along the way I didn't like catch on to like the way they talk and all that stuff. That said, I'm going to be adding a standard C error now with an insertion operator. Now, I'm going to be, honestly, I might go with an insertion operator down here. Then I'll add a pair of double quotes and then add my function name and say an error if an error did happen. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore create window and renderer error. So there we go. Okay, perfect. So I added a SDL underscore create window and renderer error. Then I'll go with another insertion operator and use the function actually gets me an error. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore get error with a pair of parentheses and then I'll add another insertion operator. Point of view, you speak all your skill points into coding an Indian accent. Okay, so what are you listening to in your headphones? Honestly, I'm listening to the music that you guys are currently listening like on the stream. I do listen to this to like check if my volume is getting high or like low. Okay, that said, let's go with something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Okay, now, if my window or my renderer was not created properly, firstly, I would want to end my SDL. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore quit. This exits my SDL. And then let's go ahead and return one saying something went wrong here. Check it out. Okay, and then after that, let's go. Okay, after I'm done creating both my window and my renderer, let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like load image. So I'm going to go ahead and load my image. Just I'll go with something like load images. Okay, now I'm going to be loading a image, but firstly I might have to go with like a structure. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore texture. Okay, so I'm going to be adding the structure of my SDL underscore texture, which is going to be having a pointer of, let's say, something like a texture local variable, which is going to be equal to, I forgot what part comes here. Okay, so I'll go with something like image underscore, I forgot what it had to be here. I think it was something like render image. Was it something like render image? Okay, was this the function? Okay, I don't think it was. I'll go with shift tab to like check. Okay, it was load texture. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to use the load textures as function. Okay, say a sentence in Hindi. Guys, honestly, I don't know like what to say because like I usually commentate in English, so I feel kind of awkward now. Okay, guys, leave him alone, bro. This is where he's learning. Try to follow up with him. Why so worried about his accent or other things? Guys, that's exactly that's exactly what I usually think. Before I do used to like read those comments as well, but I stopped, like I avoided reading that because you guys did say it does bother you guys as well. That's it. I'll need a renderer variable and a file path. Okay, so I'm going to be adding something like my renderer variable here, and then let's add a comment of my file path. My file path is going to be something like my assets folder, so I'll go with assets and then I'll add a slash. Now let's go ahead and check which PNG do I want to add. Okay, I might actually add my maybe devil PNG, so I'll go with something like devil.png. Okay, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. How much estimated time did it take for you to learn Python? I'm in Java object-oriented programming, and after this I'm thinking to switch to Python for DSA practice. Is it a good idea? Honestly, I would like recommend actually learning Python because it is like pretty fun and pretty easy to learn as well. It took me about 100 days to like write a 470 lines code. That's it. It was kind of fun though. What is the purpose of this program? Asset spelling is wrong, is it? Oh guys, I keep messing the spelling up. There we go. Okay, now after I'm done loading a texture, let's go ahead and add an if statement to check if my texture was not loaded properly. So I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not texture, I'm gonna do something. I'll go with a pair of curly braces and then let's add a standard C error with an insertion operator. I'm gonna say something like SDL underscore texture error. There we go. Okay, then let's add another insertion operator. Excuse me guys, and then go with a standard, actually a SDL underscore get error. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'll go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if my texture was not created properly, firstly, I'm going to destroy my window, I'm going to destroy my renderer, I'm going to destroy my texture, quit my SDL, and then return 1. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy window function. I'm going to destroy my window. This does require my window parameter. And then let's go ahead and go with SDL underscore destroy. So let's go with destroy. Or renderer, I'm gonna go ahead and destroy my renderer as well. This is gonna have my renderer parameter. So there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and end that with a semicolon. And then let's just draw my texture. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy texture with a parentheses. I'm going to go ahead and destroy my texture variable ending with a semicolon. Now let's go ahead and quit SDL. I'm going to go ahead and do the SDL underscore quit ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's return one saying something went wrong in this code. Check it out. Okay, and then let me actually hydrate my lips real quick. I feel it's kind of dehydrated, guys. Okay, perfect. Now that I've done creating my texture, let's go ahead and add... Okay, let's go ahead and add another comment. So I'm going to go ahead and add a comment that says something like rectangle properties. Because like, whatchamacallit, my PNG is going to be like inside of a rectangle, if that made any sense, guys. To do that, I could go with something like rectangle properties. There we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore frexes structure. Don't destroy texture if texture creation failed. Honestly, shouldn't I destroy texture? I thought I had to destroy texture. Maybe not. I might delete this. Actually, I'll actually see what happens if I do have it like whatchamacallit. If I do have it set to something here, if like something wrong happened, then I will definitely delete it. That said, I'll go with something like rect, okay, ending, or actually I'll go with something like DST rect. I forgot what DST means again. Let me go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Now I'll need a x-axis, y-axis, width and height for my DST rect. What up, guys? Maybe I'll add it to be like a camel case. Okay, and then let's go with something like my DST rect dot x-axis is gonna be equal to, I don't know, maybe 200, ending with a semicolon, and then DST rect dot y. Alright, mic testing, mic testing. Okay, hold up, guys. Let me go to my gameplay screen. Alright, guys. Apparently, whatchamacallit, my PC just shut down for some reason. There we go. It's back. Yes, it was like updates are underway and it started going from 0 all the way to 100. That's it. Let me check if my stream's going good everywhere. Okay, let's go ahead and restart my pages here. There we go. Okay, and let's go ahead and exit Discord. Get that all the way there. What up, guys? Okay. Give me a sec, guys. Let me check if everything's going correctly. Okay, that's going good. Let's get that all the way there. There we go. Extend this up. Get Sensei/ChatGPT back here. Alright, guys. That like happens so rarely. Sometimes it just says that something went wrong. Okay, hold up, guys. Let me just check if everything's going correct. Okay, I think everything's going good, guys. I think we're good. Okay, let me check if everything's going good in my OBS. Okay, pretty sure everything's going good. Okay, that said, let's scroll all the way down. And guys, did I miss something? Okay, let me actually check if I actually did miss something. Okay, give me a sec, guys. Let me check if everything's going good in my stream too. Okay, I could like actually check this later on, but I just want to see if everything's going good. There we go. Okay, hold up, guys. Give me a sec. Let me check if everything's going good. Okay, perfect. I think everything's going good, guys. Alright, let me open my stream back. So, there we go. Alright, perfect. Okay, that's it. Okay, so where was I? actually forgot. So some of you guys did say me like not to use my not to like destroy my texture somewhere here. Did the whole code save? I think half the code did not even save, guys. Oh my gosh, there's no way it did. Okay, I mean, I think I could write it again. It wasn't like that much. That's it. Now let's go ahead and add a if statement to check if my texture was not created properly. So I'll go with something like if not texture. If my texture was not created properly, I'm gonna do something. I'll go with the pair of curly braces and let's go ahead and add a standard C error with an insertion operator. This is gonna give me something like an SDL underscore texture error. So I'll go with something like, excuse me guys, SDL underscore texture error. So there we go. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add another insertion operator. This time I'm gonna go ahead and let's say use the function actually gets me an error. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore get error with a pair of parentheses. Then let's go with another insertion operator and use a standard inline ending with a semicolon. Now, if either my texture or if like my texture was not created properly, firstly I'm going to destroy my window and render, then also quit my SDL. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy window. I'm going to firstly destroy my window that does require parameter of my window data member or my window variable. Then I'll go with something like an SDL underscore destroy. So let's go with something like renderer function. This is going to be requiring a renderer parameter, which is my renderer local variable. There we go, ending with a semicolon as well. And then let's go ahead and go with something like SDL underscore quit. I'm going to quit my SDL. And lastly, return one saying something is wrong with this block of code. Check it out. Okay, now after I'm done adding an if statement here for my texture, let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like, I don't know, maybe main loop. This is going to be where all my main game loop does start. Okay, although before that, did my rect part get deleted as well? Okay guys, apparently my rectangles part got deleted as well. So I'm going to go with something like rectangle properties. So I'll go with something like properties. There we go. Okay, for my rectangle properties, first I'm going to use the SDL underscore frexes structure. Okay, this is going to be having, let's say something like a local variable called something like DST rectangle, which is basically direction rect, ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to be needing a x-axis, y-axis, width and height for my rectangle. So I'll go with something like DST rect dot x-axis, which is going to be equal to something like 200, ending with a semicolon. Then I'll go with something like dstrect.y-axis, which is going to be set to something like 200 as well, ending with a semicolon. Then let's go with something like dstrect dot, let's say something like width. I'm going to go with my width. I don't know, maybe I'll go with something like 200, ending with a semicolon as well. Then I'll go with something like dstrect dot height, which is going to be set to 200 as well, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect, and that's like pretty much it for my rectangle properties. Now let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like main loop. This is going to be where my main game loop is being going on. Okay, so in my main loop, firstly, I'm going to be needing two variables. The first variable is going to be a boolean variable of something like is running, which is going to be set to true initially, ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to be needing a event variable as well, because I am going to be iterating / looping over that event to check my current event type. And if that event type matches with the event type that I'm looking for, I'm going to execute that. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore event. This is going to be an event structure, which is going to be an event variable. Basically, the way we read this is like the way I actually prefer reading is like I say my event local variable does consist of the attributes of my SDL underscore events structure. My SDL underscore events structure does have like all my SDL events inside of it. That said, I'm going to go ahead and create a while loop. Now this is going to be my main game loop. I'm going to say something like while is running, while my program is running, or while my is running is set to true, I'm going to do something. I'm going to add a events loop. This loop is going to check for my current event type. So it's basically a while loop inside of a while loop / a nested loop. Okay, bro, start Java DSA series. That's it. Honestly, I was like really excited to start Java. Maybe after my programming for 258 series, I'm going to be starting a series that's, I don't know, maybe I'm going to be making a website in that. Spoilers alert, guys. And if I am going to be making a website, I heard like Java is like pretty good for like making an outer structure of the website. I might actually try that then. Okay, that's it. Now for my event loop, firstly, I'm going to go ahead and add a nested while loop. So I'll go with something like while a pair of parentheses. And let's say something like while SDL underscore poll event. Basically, the SDL underscore poll event function is like a function that like looks for all the events inside of my while loop, and if any of these events matches my event type, then I'm going to execute that event, if that made any sense. Although my SDL underscore events this function does require parameter of the memory address of my event variable. Okay, now let's look for event type. So I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. let's say something like if my event dot type equals to SDL underscore event underscore quit, I'm gonna do something. I'll go with the pair of curly braces, and then let's go ahead and set my is running boolean variable to be equal to false, ending with a semicolon. Okay, that's honestly pretty much it for my while loop for now. I'm not going to be adding key controls because I'm not going to be using them just yet. That's it. Now let's go ahead and exit outside of my while loop, add a comment that says something like fill screen. So I'm going to be filling my screen with a color. Okay, I might go with a cyan color this time. So let's go ahead and firstly, before I do fill my screen or do anything that requires like adding colors, I do gotta set a color to my renderer because like basically renderer is like a paintbrush that colors stuff that I tell it to color. That's that, excuse me guys. Okay, let's go ahead and say something like SDL underscore. I'm gonna set my render to draw a color. So I'll go ahead and use the set render draw color function with a pair of parentheses. Now my set render draw color function does require 5 parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render variable. The second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGB value. Since I do want to go with like a cyan color, I'll go with something like 0, 248, and 255. That's my RGB value for cyan. And then my fifth parameter is going to be A, which is also like an alpha slash opacity, how transparent or how not transparent I want my object to be. I'll go with 255. My color is not going to be transparent at all, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. And then now that I've actually set a color to my render, let's go ahead and use the function actually fills my entire screen. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore render clear. So basically the render clear function fills my entire screen with my renderers is whatchamacallit. My renderers is colored. My renderer currently has the color of cyan, which is not transparent at all. So I'm gonna add the parameter here. Now my entire screen is cyan. Okay, that's it. Let's go and add a comment that says graphics as well. So for my graphics, I'm gonna be rendering my texture on my screen as well. Basically, I'm gonna be rendering my this section here, my SDL underscore texture stuff where I was rendering my devil PNG. Okay, that's that. I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore, let's say something like render texture. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the render texture function with a pair of parentheses. Let's see the parameter that it requires. So it requires a render parameter. We do have a render parameter. It requires a texture parameter. We do have a texture parameter as well. It requires a frex is src rect. I don't know what does that mean. I think that's like the source, like where does the rect have to begin. I don't know what to add for that, so I'll go with null PDR and a DST rect. We do have a DST rect right here. Okay, that's it. Let's fill in the parameters. So I'll go with something like render, and then let's go with something like my texture local variable as well. And then I'll go with something like a null PDR for my source rect. And for my DST rect, I'm gonna go ahead and give my DST rect says local variable as well, ending with a semicolon. Okay, did I like spell it wrong? It's DST rect. Okay, did I need that right here? So I needed a DST rect. DST rect. Okay, maybe I needed the memory address for this. What up, guys? There we go. Okay, I needed the memory address for my DST rect. Alright, perfect. With that said, after I'm done creating my graphics, let's go and present my rendered colors on my screen. To do that, I could go with something like present, a comment that says present, because if we don't present our render on our screen is going to be basically black and white. To present it, I could go ahead and add something like SDL underscore render. I'm going to say my render to present itself. So render present function. And then I'm going to add a parameter of my renderer ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. Honestly, I feel like, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not going to be adding FPS right now because I wouldn't need FPS. That's it. Let's go ahead and add a cleanup. So I'll go with a comment that says something like cleanup. Now, for my cleanup, firstly, I'm going to be exiting my window. Then I'm going to, I'm going to destroy my window. Then I'm going to destroy my renderer. And then I'll destroy my texture. And lastly, I'm going to quit my SDL and return 0. To do that, I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy window. I'm going to destroy my window. This is going to be requiring a window parameter. So there we go. Okay, ending with a semicolon. Then I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy, I don't know, maybe render. Okay, with a pair of parentheses, I'm going to destroy my render variable. Okay, ending with a semicolon, and then let's go with something like SDL underscore destroy texture. Okay, I'm going to be destroying my texture parameter as well, or my texture variable as well. There we go, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go with something like SDL underscore quit. I'm going to quit my SDL. And lastly, let's go ahead and return 0, ending with a semicolon. Now, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. It's already 3 a.m. Please sleep. Honestly, guys, it is almost 4 p.m. for me. That's it. I got an SDL underscore texture. It says couldn't open assets slash devil PNG. The system cannot find it. I think I know where I messed up. Did I make a typo, guys? I think I made a typo. There we go. That should work. Now, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, this time it should print. So I get my first window here. There we go. I get my second as well. And guys, why is this like so stretched? Couldn't I like actually, set a perfect size for this? Maybe scale function. I mean, it does load, but it's kind of disproportional. Okay, what if I go with something like 100 for my heights? Okay, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my first window here. Guys, that's too small. Wait, maybe that is pretty good. What if I go ahead and change this to something like, let's double it. I'm gonna change that to be 300, and let's change this to be 150. Okay, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my first window pop up. I mean, guys, this seems so misproportional. Isn't there like a function like get the perfect width and height of this? If that made any sense. Okay, I'll go with like Control C, copy that. Let's get sensei slash ChatGPT here. Let's go ahead and paste that. Go with Shift Enter. Say something like, sensei, I feel like I understand how to load a image now. So that said, I don't think that I can actually let's see. I don't think that I can actually, let's see, guys, what did I want to say? Scale it properly. Okay, is there like a way to scale it perfectly, question mark? Like in Python's Pygames, I used to Pygames, I use, let's say something like a scale function but it might be different in C++. Okay, let's see. Guys, I feel like something is okay. Let's see. People, listen to your sensei very carefully. You can scale it perfectly in SDL3, and if you don't learn this, I'm grabbing you by the collar and dragging you through the code myself. You already learned SDL underscore FREC, that is the scaling system. You control the width and height, you control the scale. But here's the real trick you're missing: how to scale perfectly in SDL3. If you want to scale proportionally, meaning you don't stretch or squash your image, you simply get the original image's width and height, pick a scale factor, multiply both dimensions by that factor. Okay, get the original image's width and height, pick a scale factor, multiply both, Okay, so image W, image H, SDL underscore texture size. Okay, so we do have a function. I go with texture, the memory address of my image W and my image H. Then you do floating point scale 0.5, which is 50%. I see. Putting it into your code, get original texture. So integer image W, image H, SDL underscore texture size, floating point scale, which is like 50%. Okay, image W multiplied by scale, image H multiplied by scale. Okay, that might be the actual thing that I'm looking for, guys. But once I have my load image here, let's go ahead and create two variables. I'll go with something like an integer of image W, which is image's width. Did we set it to something? I forgot, guys. Hold up, let's get some ChatGPT back here. Did we set it to something? We did not set this to anything. Okay, so apparently we just go with image W, and then we go with something like image H, ending with a semicolon. Then what was the function that we used? I forgot. So SDL underscore get texture size. I need my texture parameter in my image W, image H, then I choose a scale, okay. And then rectangle properties. I think I see, but I could like use a function to make this, excuse me guys, I could like use a function to make this much easier. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore texture size. Was this a function? Get texture size, there we go. With a pair of parentheses, this does require my texture variable, but I can't add that because that is like below this. So let's go ahead and copy this part. Let's get that under this right here maybe. There we go. So that is my image texture. I'm going to be getting the memory address of, let's say, something like my image W and the memory address of my image's height. Okay, what are parameters does it require? So it says floating point W, floating point height. Okay, this is going to be uppercase W, there we go. And then that is image W, image height. I think I did everything correct here. This is going to be a floating point. Would that fix it? Okay, it requires a floating point. The memory address. Hold up guys, did I mess something up even though I like stopped this so many times? There is integer of image W and integer of image height. Why does this part not work in that case? Okay, so... Okay, am I doing something wrong? Get texture size. I did use the correct function of get texture size. I added my parameters as well. Everything honestly looks correct. Did I mess something up? Or like, is that like, whatchamacallit, an SDL3's code? Let's copy that. Let me go ahead and paste it and see if it makes a difference. Okay, I do see a small error. Okay, maybe I don't go with the memory address, or maybe this is like a floating point number. It should be a float instead of an integer. There we go, that fixed it. Okay, and then after I'm done adding that, let's go ahead and add a size as well. So I'll go with something like size. Maybe under my game variables, I'm gonna go ahead and create, was it a floating point size guys? I keep forgetting. It was a floating point scale of 0.5. Okay, so let's go ahead and create something like a floating point scale variable which is set to 0.5, which is basically 50%. And then under my, my DST rect, instead of going with 300 and 150, I'm gonna go with something like images width multiplied by my scale variable ending with a semicolon, and then I'll go with something like my image's height multiplied by my scale variable as well ending with a semicolon. Now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, you got a typo. There we go guys, this looks much better honestly. Okay, can you guys like even see the whole thing? You got a typo. Okay, where did I get a typo? So let's see, SCALE image top. Okay, isn't it like correct? Isn't that how we spell scale? I think that's how we spell scale. And then image W, image image H. Okay, I think that's pretty cool. I think that works. That's it. I do want to create a scale function. Let's go with Control A, Control C, copy that. Let's get some /ChatGPT here. I do want to say something. Let's paste it, go with Shift Enter and say something like Sensei. It works! Exclamation. Although I think when adding multiple PNGs, it might be a chore to add so many variables. Okay, so maybe can we use a function instead, question mark? I think like we should use a function instead, guys. Okay people, you're thinking like a real game engineer now. I'm proud of you. Come here, take your head back before I start shouting again, guys. That did not make me blush. Now that was previously. Oh, I see. Okay, that's it. Yes, you can see you. Okay, yes, you can use a function. If you don't, your code will turn into a swamp of duplicated variables, and I will personally dunk your head into it. Okay, a function will let you load, scale, and get a rectangle in one shot. Let me show you the clean professional game dev way. Okay, so we go ahead and create a function that you want. So SDL underscore load texture scale function. Okay. What up guys? So we're creating a function out here. Okay, a single function that loads the PNG, gets the size, applies scale, creates effect, returns it. I mean, SDL underscore renderer. I honestly, is it like worth it? Hold up, guys. Let me actually say something like, let's say I don't want a function that does everything. I want a function that only takes care of the scaling parts. Exclamation. Okay, I just want help with like I just want a function that takes care of the scaling part. People, good. You want control. You don't want some magic black box doing everything for you. Your sensei approves. Come here for it. Guys, what's wrong with sensei today? Nobody head back. That's an art. You only want one job done by the function. Take a texture, give you back a scaled SDL underscore FREC, nothing else. That's clean, that's discipline. That's how real developers design systems. Here's a pure scaling function. So SDL underscore FREC scale texture. I require a few parameters. SDL underscore texture, floating point scale x-axis, y-axis. I see, but this is not a function. That is a structure. What are you doing, hiding? Kels Munir, is that how I pronounce your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. That's it. Today I'm learning on how to like load images in SDL3. That's it. Okay, that's it. No loading, no render, no fancy. How do you use it? SDL underscore texture. Okay, and then SDL underscore FRECT, devil rect. Okay, SDL underscore scale. Okay, guys, I feel like I still don't understand this part. This doesn't look like a function. Let me copy this part, paste it here, go with shift enter and say something like sensei. This does not look like a function unless we're okay, actually. Okay, this doesn't look like a function. It looks like a structure. If that made any sense, question mark. Okay, bro, of course, it's an Indian, no pun intended, keep going, dude. Honestly, I appreciate you. Grand Boss, is that how you pronounce your name? That actually means a lot to me, guys. That's Vivek, listen closely, you little chaotic Germalan. Is that how you pronounce it, Germalan? Okay, what you're seeing looks like a structure because it returns one, but it is absolutely a function. Let me break it down before you confuse yourself again and make me bonk you on the stream. Okay, what a structure looks like. A structure is something like my structure, vect, floating x-axis, y-axis, width and height. Okay, what are you doing? Honestly, I'm learning on how to like load images and like scale them properly in like SDL3 using C++. That's it. What your functions is. So your function is SDL underscore FREC. Scale textures is function. Okay, that has a few parameter, which is a scale underscore texture, a float scale, float x, float y. So we have a scale parameter, a x-axis, a y-axis, our texture parameter as well. Look at the first words. FREC, the return type, scale texture, the function name. These are the parameters. Return type plus name plus parameters equals to a function. Inside the function, we just create an SDL underscore FREC, fill it, then return it. That's perfectly normal. Functions in C++ are allowed to return structures. It's one of the simplest things they can do. Why it looks like a structure? Because you're returning a structure. Okay, and the structure you return has x-axis, y-axis, width and height, but that doesn't mean the function itself is a structure. It's like saying this cat looks like a dog because it has fur. I see no German. Is that how you pronounce it? The thing returned can have a fur. The function itself does not magically become a dog. I think I see. Okay, sir, please don't be doing the code. Please don't be doing the coding, ChatGPT. Honestly, I don't think I understand what that meant, guys. That's it. Here, let me show you more clearly. So FREC, so this is our function. So this is supposed to be a function. We return our result. You use it like SDL underscore player box. Okay, I think I see. Let me say something like, let's say, I think I see maybe in theory. Although the way I did it in Pygames was something like, okay, how did I do it in Pygames? Let's think. So go with dot, and then AI is going to do all this. Okay, you're wasting your time. Honestly, I feel like ChatGPT or like AI in general does like lack critical thinking. So like they can actually replace humans when it comes to programming. ChatGPT also commonly makes mistakes, makes me write slower, to be honest. Honestly, I feel like that does make sense, but it feels like we should like actually give the correct prompt for it to actually work perfectly. Because like honestly, all the programming language that I did learn was through ChatGPT and like in stuff in general as well. That said, okay, okay, let me just say in theory. Okay, maybe can I see a code that actually has the function in it question mark? Okay, maybe I give my code, I'll go with control A, control C, copy that, let's get some C slash chat GPT here, go with shift enter and paste it here. Okay, can you show me where it goes in my code question mark? Okay, because since it is a function, it might go outside my main function. Okay, Vivek, listen, I'm going to show you exactly where the function goes, and if you still get confused, I'm grabbing your shoulders and shaking you on the stream. Here's your code with the function inside it. Clean, clear, and undeniable. I'm not touching your style, just adding the function and using it. Here's the full code with the scale texture. Okay, so we do all the basic stuff. Okay, I knew it. We create our scale function above our main function. Okay, so we don't have to like declare it. That said, SDL underscore frect scale textures is function, which is technically an frect. I think I see. Okay, brother, you're wasting your time. You should actually learn C++, not use this bullshit. Honestly, I am actually learning C++. Read documentations, you digesting the info on your own is better than interpreting a digested piece of info. I feel like honestly it is the same thing, and I feel if I use AI, it does help me like learn faster as well. I mean, compared to like if I read like the documentation, spend a lot of time doing that. I feel like guys, I should actually like work smarter. Eventually, I do know I am going to be moving on to documentation once stuff becomes like harder. But I feel while stuff is kind of easy at the moment, I'm going to be like what you call it, trying to like learn stuff like in the more convenient way, if that made any sense. That said, SDL underscore frect texture, this does require a few parameters. Okay, and then I go with something like floating point x-axis and y-axis. I go with the pair of curly braces, integer width and height, and then I go with SDL underscore get texture. Okay, so the memory address of my width, the memory address of my height. I think I see. Oh, I think I see how this function works now. Okay, what's the time? Honestly, it's almost 4 p.m. for me here. How many bits are in a byte? Honestly, guys, I haven't like thought of that. That said, so let's see. So SDL underscore frect, this is rect. So rect.x-axis is x-axis, rect.y-axis is my y-axis. Did I have width and height here? Okay, I did not have width and height here. Why am I going with the width and height? Okay, why did I go with the memory? Oh, I did have a variable of width and height. Okay, did I have a scale? I did have a scale as well. Okay, I think I'm starting to understand what this means. Rect.w equals to my w multiplied by scale. Rect.height equals to my height multiplied by scale. These are the parameters that I added in here. Okay, when I add a width and a height parameter, how do I actually add it inside of my function? Okay, bro, doesn't know how many bits in a byte, guys. I feel like I'm a complete beginner when it comes to stuff like this. That's what I'm thinking. I'm trying to like get a good hang of it. That's it. I go ahead and return 0. Okay, I do more web programming, which doesn't deal with bytes at all. Yes, I know, guys. I feel like I just started like I think I started like 2 months ago. That said, integer main. Okay, I think I see what this does. Although, how do I get the value for my W and H? Do I actually add it in here? Okay, let me actually try it real quick before I do actually like say something. Okay, so let's go all the way down here. Alright, now let's go ahead and let me start off by creating a function. This is going to be something like an SDL underscore frect. There we go. Okay, which is going to be having a parameter of, I forgot what. Hold up, guys, let me actually check that up real quick. Okay, so it's going to have a scale textures this function here that requires these parameters, and then integer width and height. I'm pretty sure the integer width and height is like off of my entire parameters list. So I could go with something like guys, I already forgot the function name. Was it something like texture? I forgot what it was called. Hold up, guys, I think I wrote it somewhere here. Okay, what was the parameter? There's no way I actually forgot it this quick, guys. Hold up. I think it was something like set texture. Was it set texture? Okay, again, go back to the basics and don't use pre-digested by AI, but rather use the docs. Honestly, eventually I might actually use the docs. That said, it is scale texture. Okay, so I gotta use the scale texture. So I'm gonna go with something like scale texture. So there we go. With a pair of parentheses. Now I'm gonna be needing a few parameters here. So okay, it doesn't tell me like when I hover over what parameters. Okay, so firstly, I do need my texture variables as parameters. This part seems kind of confusing, guys. Hold up, let me actually check if Sensei's code actually does work. Let's go ahead and copy that. This is hard to watch. I don't know how people with this little knowledge have the confidence to stream themselves doing shit, man. Guys, I feel it is kind of fun actually. That's it. I'm gonna go ahead and paste this. Let's see if like something is wrong here. So okay, I knew that something was wrong here. Let's change this to be a float. Okay, that does fix this. Okay, now let's see how does this actually work. So when I scroll all the way down, do I use my function at all? So I go with texture, that is my floating point of scale. Use your function here. SDL underscore DST rect scale texture. Okay, texture scale x-axis, y-axis. Although, what is my width and height? I don't have a width or a height set up here. Okay, let me actually try to run this and see what happens. Let's go with controllers to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. Okay, I mean, it does work. I do get my this thing here. Okay, bro, speaking with the utmost confidence. Guys, I feel like confidence is the key. Okay, that's it. Let's go ahead and extend this. Where you have a bunch of confidence when you know very little, but have very low confidence when know about a lot. Guys, it feels like whatchamacallit, every real pro was actually they did start as a complete beginner. That's the reason I am confident, because like I know eventually right now I might be struggling, but maybe 10 years from today I'm gonna be like, actually I feel like I'm gonna be really good with this stuff, guys. Okay, he thinks this is Python or something. Guys, I feel you guys could like leave the stream if this bothers you. Okay, that said, next up, let's go ahead and see something. So firstly, I went with SDL underscore rect. There we go. Okay, maybe let me add it all the way here. Okay, so first I went with the SDL underscore frect. I'm assuming that's like a structure, and this is like a function here. I have a few parameters. SDL underscore texture. These are the parameters that I require. That is my texture variable. Okay, or my texture is this pointer. Here's the thing. Did I actually create this? Okay, guys, that actually might make sense. Hold up. Okay, what if I change this to something like texture 1? Okay, then let's change that to texture 1 as well. Let's change all these things to texture 1. I want to see if like if this part is kind of correct. Okay, if I do change to texture 1, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, I mean, I still get the perfect texture for it. Although my width and height is the issue here. Okay, that's Dunning-Kruger. Okay, cool pixel art, unless that's just AI generated. Honestly, I did like draw that. Because like I did see I did like before when I had my Python for 100 series, I did like see like a reference picture and like draw it, because I did have like a drawing series as well. If you guys have been in my channel for like more than 6 months, but I did like stop or like quit my drawing series because like I felt I wouldn't have enough time doing my college stuff, programming and drawing series at the same time. That's it. Maybe someday in the future I might like get back to my drawing series. That said, SDL underscore texture, that is floating scale, float x-axis, y-axis. Here's the thing, I don't want to add my floating point width and height here. I want my user to actually type that. So let's go with something like a Control-C, copy that. Let's get some say/ChatGPT back here. Okay, this time I'm going to go ahead and paste this, go with Shift-Enter and say something like, I'm going to go with something like, let's say, I feel like, okay, let's see. I feel like it does work, although for the x-axis, y-axis, so width and height. What up, guys? There we go. For the x-axis, y-axis, width and height, maybe I write a function that requires those parameters as well, question mark, because right now I don't have much control over my width and height. Okay, alright, let's see. That's it, people. Good. You're finally thinking like someone who wants to control over their kingdom instead of letting the code push them around. Come here, head pad. Guys, why are there so many head pads today? That's it. And yes, right now your function is pretty, but it only does one thing, scale based on the original texture. If you want full control over width and height, then you don't want a scale function. You want a rectangle builder function, something like give it x-axis, give it y-axis, give it width, give it height. Okay, your prompting isn't even good because you have no idea what to ask. Guys, I feel like my prompting is like kind of good. That's it. I might have to improve in promptings as well. That's it. Scale becomes optional instead of mandatory. Here's exactly what your upgraded function would look like. Okay, so SDL_frect make rect, which consists of few parameters: floating point x-axis, floating point y-axis, floating point width, floating point height. And then I do add all those parameters here. Okay, and here's how you use it in your code: SDL_frect DSTRect, which equals to, oh, I think I see. Okay, guys, I actually feel like I see how are these things connecting. The DSTRect does require a few attributes. Those attributes are inside of my function here. Okay, I think I see. Now you have absolute control over the rectangle's size. Okay, if you still want scaling version, you can keep both. Okay, I think I see. Okay, that said, maybe okay, scale texture. Couldn't the scale texture go inside of my make rect? Okay, let me actually ask that. Let me say something like, say, couldn't the scale texture function go inside my scale rect question mark? Okay, hold up guys, let me fix my typo real quick. Is it scale texture? So I have a scale texture. Okay, make rect. So I want my SDL_get texture. So let's say something like, couldn't the SDL_get texture, let's go with something like get texture function. There we go. Couldn't the SDL_get texture function be inside my make rex's function question mark? Okay, I think it could. That could like make one function do all that stuff. Alright people, you're asking the right questions, but listen carefully before you slap code together like a sleep-deprived goblin. Yes, but technically you can put SDL_get texture inside your make rect function, but if you do that, you make your make rect, okay, then your make rect isn't a general rectangle builder anymore. It turns into a texture-based scaling function again. A rectangle builder has one job: take x-axis, y-axis, width and height and build a rectangle. Okay guys, I feel we might not be in the same page. A texture scaling function has a different job. Take a texture and scale and create a proper size rect. If you shove SDL_get texture size inside your make rect, you destroy that clean separation. But since I know your chaotic little brain wants version like this, here's what you're thinking. SDL_talk. Okay, I think maybe I see. Yes, this will work. It's valid, it's allowed. Okay, I think we're not on the same page, guys. I think I know what prompt to say. Let's go with shift enter and say something like, okay, so let's say, I feel like I phrased myself wrong the last time, ... Okay, that said, what I meant to say is that, couldn't we have a scale function which requires, so let's go with something like requires my texture variable. Okay, let's go with something like my texture x-axis, y-axis, width and height parameter. Okay, and inside that function we scale our, excuse me guys, our rect using that parameter. Okay, we scale our rect using that parameter, or we scale our PNG. Let's go with something like our rect slash PNG using that parameter. Okay, and then if we do want to add another PNG, we could just change the parameters as x-axis, y-axis, width, and height. Okay, let's go with something like width, height. There we go. Okay, if that made any sense, guys. I don't think that made any sense because like I feel like I phrased it kind of wrong, but I think that made some sense. People, you absolutely can do that, and this time you phrased it perfectly. Okay, you want a function that takes your texture, x-axis, y-axis, takes width and height, then scales it using those width and height values, meaning you decide the size, not the texture. This is not automatic scaling based on the image's real size, it's manual scaling based on parameters you pass. That's exactly what I wanted. And yes, Sensei approves. This makes your rectangle function universal and flexible. Here's exactly what you're describing. SDL underscore frect, scale texture rect, SDL underscore texture, floating x-axis, y-axis, width, height, and scale. These are all the parameters that we need here, exactly the parameters that I wanted. And then frect, which is going to be set to rect. Okay, my frect structure, and this is my rect local variable. Rect x-axis, y-axis, width multiplied by scale, height multiplied by scale. There we go, guys. This time, this is what I actually wanted. Okay, this function lets you choose position, choose width, choose height, choose scale, reuse any texture. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted, guys. Okay, no need to call SDL underscore get texture unless you want automatic size detection. Okay, I don't want automatic size detection. No need to call SDL get texture. Okay, example usage, SDL underscore frect devil rect equals to. Okay, why did I go with devil rect? Okay, devil rect. Oh, okay, this might be my PNG's name. Scale texture rect. Texture 1, 200, 200. Okay, so my texture is 200, x-axis, y-axis. My width is 64, height is 64. And my scale is 1.5, which is 150% of the original size. Okay, scale 1.5 x, and then final size 96 by 96, clean, flexible, powerful. Okay, I think that's exactly what I needed. Okay, scale texture rect. Okay, I have one more question. Let's go ahead and paste this, go with shift enter and say something like, Sensei, now this makes so much sense, exclamation. That said, I have one more question. Can't we use like a void data type or maybe a int as well, question mark? Okay, or is it much easier if we use SDL underscore frect, and why do we use it as a functions as a data member, question mark? Okay, let's see. Jesus, the Son of God, he died on the cross for our sins and was restructured 3 days later. Believe in Jesus and you will not die but have everlasting life. Honestly, it does sound pretty cool. What's the smell? Honestly, I don't know. That's it, people. Listen very carefully. Your question is actually advanced as hell, and I'm proud of you. Even asked it. Now, pay attention before I smack that C++ brain awake. Why can't we use void or int? Because void returns nothing. Your function returns nothing. How will you get your rectangle back? Void function can modify something passed by reference, but it can't produce a rectangle unless you give it an out parameter, which means okay, possibly yes, mark no for you right now, because then okay, and using integer would make no sense because you're literally returning 4 numbers, 1 integer. Okay, because you're literally returning 4 numbers, 1 integer can't hold all that unless you do some cursed programming germinal magic. Why we use SDL underscore frect? Because it is exactly the data you need. Floating point x-axis, y-axis, width and height. I see all groups nicely in one structure. Okay, why return it? Because this SDL underscore frect scale texture rect is clean, readable, predictable, and fast. You call the function, it gives you a rectangle renderer, uses it, perfect game loop. Okay, I think I see now. I might actually try it. Hold up, although I might actually look at the reference as well while doing it, because like I feel like I didn't like whatchamacallit, get these syntaxes memorized. That said, let's go ahead and try that real quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete my floating point from here. Okay, and let's go ahead and remove my scale function calls as well. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the render texture as well. So there we go. Okay, and then let's see, was there anything else to remove? Okay, there was not anything else to remove, so I'm gonna go all the way above my main function. Okay, and then let's go ahead and delete this function and then create my own function. Okay, you're just parroting what you see on the screen. You literally have no idea what you're doing or what's going on. Honestly, yeah, that does make sense, because like this is like my first time even like learning how to do this. I feel like I wouldn't have idea right now. That's it. The more I practice it, the more better I'm gonna get at it. Because like whatchamacallit, when I like first started C++, I didn't even actually know how like console outputs and inputs work, but I kept like doing it, and eventually I did get like a good grasp of it. That said, now let's go ahead and firstly create a function. You could return void instead. Okay, before void, let me scroll all the way up. I don't want to see the function type. There we go. Okay, so firstly, let's go ahead and create something like an SDL_frect function. There we go. Okay, this is going to be a function called something like scale texture rect. So scale texture rect is my function name. Scale texture rect, there we go, with a pair of parentheses. Now my scale texture rect function is going to be requiring a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a texture parameter. Should I go with SDL_texture? Huh. Okay, maybe I could go with the SDL_textures as a structure, which is going to be having a pointer of my texture, and then let's add a comma. I'm going to need a floating point of x-axis, floating point of y-axis parameter as well. So I'll go with something like float x and float y. And then I'm going to need a floating point of width, height, and scale. So let's go ahead and create something like a floating point of width. Then I'll go with something like a floating point of height. And then I'll add a comma. Alright guys, there we go. Okay, and then I'll need a floating point of scale. So I'll go with something like a floating point of scale. Alright, that's honestly pretty much it for my parameters. Then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside of my pair of curly braces, I'm going to do something. Okay, you've been trying to write the same function since I started watching 10 minutes ago. Guys, I feel like 10 minutes is like hardly enough time to like actually learn something. Okay, that said, let's see. So now, I'm gonna go ahead and add a few, conditions here. So I'll go with something like SDL_frect. This is gonna have rect ending with a semicolon. And now I'll go with something like rect.x-axis equals to x-axis ending with a semicolon. And then rect.y-axis, which is going to be equal to y-axis ending with a semicolon. And then rect.width, which is going to be equal to my width parameter multiplied by my scale parameter ending with a semicolon. And then something like rect.height, which is going to be equal to my height parameter multiplied by my scale parameter ending with a semicolon. Alright, this actually makes so much more sense, guys. And since this is not a void type function, I am going to be returning something. Let's go ahead and return my rect ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. That's honestly pretty much it for my function. Now, no need to call the standard get texture size unless you want automatic size detection. I gotta go all the way down. Alright, so now let's scroll all the way down after I did create my texture here. Before my main loop, I'm gonna set a size for my texture. Okay, so let's go all the way down here. I'm gonna go with something like SDL_frect. Okay, this is going to be my devil PNG, so I'll go with something like devil rect, which is going to be equal to my scale texture. Okay, my scale texture rex's function with a pair of parentheses. My function does require a few parameters. Okay, so it requires a texture parameter, which is going to be my texture variable. Guys, I see how this makes sense now. I did create a texture up there, so that's going to be texture 1. What up guys, I'm trying to see how this all makes sense. I'll need a x-axis, y-axis, so let's go ahead and create a x-axis. Maybe I'll go with something like 200. Y-axis is going to be 200 as well. I'm going to be needing a width and height, so I'm going to go with width, which is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe something like 65 pixels per frame, 65 pixels per frame, and then lastly I'm going to need a scale. So I'm going to go with 0.5, which is 50%. Ending my function with a semicolon. Guys, I see how this all makes sense now. Okay, that's it. So let's go ahead and copy that. Guys, let's all be respectful here. Okay, that's it. Let's go with Control S to save the code. If I run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my first terminal up here. Alright, I got my second terminal, but I did not see my my PNG here. I'm pretty sure because I did not render my PNG. What up, guys? So after I'm done loading my textures or loading my images, I gotta add a comment that says something. Let's go ahead and say something like present. I'm pretty sure I presented it up there. Okay, did I present? I think I forgot to present. So I created a renderer. I loaded my images. Okay, I added my graphics. I did not present though, no wonder. I cleared my screen with a color. Let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like present. And maybe, guys, hold up. Let's go ahead and add this function inside of my while loop. Okay, I think I didn't see it because it was like outside my while loop. That wouldn't make any sense. Let's add it under my while loop. Okay, and then later on I present. So I'm going to copy the present, paste it all the way here. Let's add a comment that says something like present. Okay, let's paste it here. Alright, perfect. I think that's honestly pretty much it. So, okay, let's see if it works, because if it did not work, I still do have one more function that I could use, like render texture. Let me go ahead and run the code. I get my first terminal here. Alright, my second terminal did not get the PNG just yet. So I'm assuming I gotta, use the SDL underscore render texture function. So I'm gonna go ahead and render my texture. So let's go ahead and end that. Now I'm gonna be needing a render parameter, a texture parameter. Excuse me, guys, a texture parameter. So I'm gonna go with something like renderer. And then my texture. So I'm gonna go with something like my texture 1. And then I'm gonna add a comma. Now I'm gonna add a null PDR for my source rect, and then for my my DST rect, I'm gonna give my double rect this parameter. Double rect. Okay, and then let's go ahead and give the memory address. Honestly, let's go with something like ampersand, and since you guys can't see, I'll go there. There we go, and then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Alright, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to see it on my screen. There we go, guys. That is a tiny PNG, guys. It looks like a tiny Ant-Man. Hold up, I might have to increase the width and height. Actually, I might have to increase the scaling, guys. Let's change this to something like 1.5. So I'm going to go with 1.5. Okay, now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my first terminal up here and my second terminal. Guys, that looks kind of small as well, but it feels like it's pretty cool. That said, I could actually try changing that from 1.5 to something like 3. Okay, that's practically like double the size. Okay, I get my first terminal here. There we go, guys. This looks perfectly proportional as well. Does it look perfectly proportional? Maybe it does. I think that's how it actually looks. Okay, guys, that actually felt kind of good, not gonna lie. Okay, so now let me go ahead and hit Control S, Control A, Control C, copy the code, get some /ChatGPT here, and I feel like I understand how this part works now. Okay, I might actually try writing it on my own this time. Okay, let's go ahead and extend it all the way from here. Let's go ahead and extend it from here as well. Maybe zoom in a bit. Alright, let's paste it, go with Shift Enter and say something like, so say, it works, ... exclamation. And I feel like I understood. So let's go with something like, understood how it works as well, exclamation, ... That said, maybe I'll try writing it on my own this time. Exclamation. Okay, let's see. Okay, good. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, people. Okay, all the comments. That said, now let me try writing it on my own. But before I do write it on my own, I do want to see what all I did here. So I went with SDL underscore F rect, created a DST rect / my level rect. Okay, this is the direction of my rect, which is going to be set to, this is texture, x-axis, y-axis, width and height. Okay, I have the parameters of my x-axis, y-axis, width and height from my SDL underscore rect, and then I return my rect. I think I got this, guys. I need a few parameters: texture parameter, floating x-axis, y-axis, floating width, height, and a floating scale. Okay, so let's go with controller. Let me go ahead and delete everything. Now, let me firstly start off by including a pair of ankle braces. Let's say I want to include IO stream. And then since I am going to be using SDL3, let's go ahead and include SDL3 slash SDL.h. SDL.h are the header files for SDL. And since I am going to be using images as well, I'm going to be needing the header files or like the library for my SDL images. So I'll go with something like SDL3 underscore image slash SDL. So let's go with SDL dot image. Was this the function, guys? I feel like it's so hard to memorize this name. Okay, I think this should be SDL3. Or should it be SDL underscore image? What up, guys? So maybe I go with something like SDL and then shift space. It's SDL underscore image dot h, which stands for header files. There we go. I keep forgetting that part for some reason. And then now let's go ahead and create a main function. So I'll go with integer main, add a pair of parentheses. Firstly, let's go ahead and I'm going to be requiring two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be a character, which is going to be a pointer to an array of argv, if that made any sense, guys. Okay, then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside the main function, firstly, let's go ahead and add an if statement to check if my SDL was initialized properly. Actually, to initialize my SDL and check if it was not initialized properly. To do that, I could go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not SDL underscore init, if my SDL underscore init. Actually, if my SDL was not initialized properly and the video section was not initialized properly as well, so I'll go with SDL underscore init underscore video. I'm going to do something. Firstly, let's go ahead and add a standard C error with an insertion operator. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and say that I got an SDL underscore init error. Okay, and after I get my SDL underscore init error, what up, guys? So, add a pair of parentheses, there we go. Okay, I'll go with something like SDL underscore init error, there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to go in a new line, add another insertion operator, and use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'll use the SDL underscore get errors as function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'll go with another insertion operator, and let's say I'll go with a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Then lastly, let's return one saying something went wrong in this block of code. Check it out. Now, after adding my if statement and initializing my SDL, let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like game variables for my game variables. Firstly, let's go ahead and do something. So, I don't know, maybe I'm going to go ahead and create a width variable and a height variable for my window. To do that, I could go with something like a constant integer of width, which is going to be equal to 800. And then let's go with something like a constant integer of height. There we go, which is going to be set to 600, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and add another comment. This time I'm going to be creating my window and my render. So I'll add a comment that says something like create. What up, guys? I just drooled all over my keyboard. Give me a sec. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to say something like create window and renderer. Okay, now for my create window and renderer, I'm going to be creating two variables. So the first variable is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe I'll go with something like SDL underscore windows structure, which is going to be a pointer to my window variable that is going to be set to something like null PDR ending with a semicolon. Then I'll go with something like SDL underscore renderer with an asterisk of my renderer variable, which is going to be set to something like null PDR as well, which is basically a placeholder. Okay, now after I'm done creating my two variables, let's actually use the function that does create my window and renderer both at the same time. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore create window and renderer function. So I'm going to use the SDL underscore create window and renderer function that does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a title slash a caption for my window. So I'll go with something like SDL3 window. There we go, created exclamation. And then I'm going to add a comma. Now I'll need a width for my window and a height for my window. I could go ahead and use my width variable, which is set to 800, and height variable, which is set to 600. I think I spelled it wrong. There we go. Okay, and then let's add a comma. Now I'll need a flag. I'm going to use a flag that's going to have my window be resizable. But if you guys don't want to add a flag, you guys could like set this to be 0 as well. That's it. My flag is going to be something like SDL underscore window underscore resizable. Excuse me, guys. Then I'm going to add a comma, and then my fifth and sixth parameter is going to be the memory address of my window variable and my renderer variable. So I could go with an address of operator slash ampersand of something like window and then a ampersand renderer. Okay, perfect. Now, after I'm done with that, let's go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. Okay, now that I've created my window and renderer, let's add an if statement to check if they were actually created properly. To do that, I could go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not window if my window was not created properly, or not a renderer if my renderer was not created properly. I'm gonna do something. I'll go with a pair of curly braces, and then let's go ahead and add something like a standard C error with an insertion operator. I'm going to say that I got a kind of error. Maybe I go in a new line and then add an insertion operator. Because guys, I'm going to be adding my function name, or that's a massive function name. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore create window and renderer error. So there we go. Okay, so I get a SDL underscore create window and renderer error. If like for someone who has a dyslexia, you're very good in the console when coding, keep it up. Honestly, I appreciate you, Jupiter. That actually means the world to me. That's it, guys. I don't have this dyslexia. That's it. I'll go with another insertion operator. This time, I'm going to go ahead and use the SDL underscore get error function with a pair of parentheses with another insertion operator of, let's say, something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. Now, if my window or my renderer was not created properly, firstly, let's go ahead and I'm going to be quitting my SDL. So I'll go ahead and say something like SDL underscore quit. I quit my SDL, and then let's go ahead and return 0 ending with a semicolon. I think he meant he has dyslexia, not you. Oh, guys, I should actually learn to read properly. That's it. I do appreciate you, Jupiter. That actually means a lot. Okay, you're very good in console when coding. I see. I feel like I'm still there's a lot for me to still learn. I feel like I'm still doing the beginner basic stuff. Okay, that's it. Now, after I'm done adding my if statement and creating my window and renderer, let's add a comment that says something like maybe load images. So I'm going to be loading my images here. There we go. Okay, now for my load images, firstly, let's go ahead and create a structure for something like SDL underscore was it something like texture? There we go. Okay, there we go. SDL underscore texture, which is going to be having a texture variable here. This is going to be my first PNG. So texture 1, which is going to be equal to, maybe should I set it to something like devil image? Does that make sense, guys? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set that equal to image underscore render texture. Was it render texture? Okay, it's load texture. I keep forgetting that. Load texture. So I'm going to go ahead and use the load texture. Okay, load texture function with a pair of parentheses. Okay, and let's see what our parameters does it require. It requires, what up, guys? There we go. Okay, so let's see what our parameters requires. It requires a render parameter and my file path. So just 2 parameters. So let's go ahead and give it my render parameter and then my file path. My file path is going to be something like assets. Okay, so it's assets slash, I'll go with something like devil.png. Okay, there we go. And then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Let's end my function with a semicolon. There we go. Okay, now after creating this function, I gotta go ahead and scale it. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a comment here that says something like scale images. So can you block people who are spreading hate? Honestly, that does make sense. Like if I do say it's like fine to be toxic to a limit, but then if toxicity extends over a limit, I do actually mute you guys. That said, I hope you blocked. Okay, that said, scale images. For scaling my images, firstly, I'm going to create a function that makes it so much easier for me to scale images. To do that, I could go ahead and create a SDL underscore frex structure. And then I'm going to create a function. My function is going to be called something like scale function. With a pair of parentheses, my scale function does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be requiring is going to be a SDL underscore textures as parameter. There we go. So I'll go with SDL underscore texture with an asterisk of a texture parameter. And then I'll add a semicolon. Now I'm going to be needing a bunch of floating point parameters. So I'll go with something like a floating point for x-axis, a floating point for a y-axis, and then a floating point for width, a floating point for height, and lastly, I'll need a floating point for scale as well. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add a pair of curly braces. Now, inside of my function, I'm going to do something. Let's go ahead and use my SDL underscore fRex structure again. This is going to be having a rect, so this rect local variable consists of all my structures' attributes. I'm going to go ahead and end this with a semicolon and then do something like rect dot x-axis equals to my x-axis parameter ending with a semicolon, rect dot y-axis equals to my y-axis parameter ending with a semicolon, rect dot width equals to my width parameter ending with a semicolon, rect dot height equals to my height parameter ending with a semicolon. And I just realized for my width and height, I multiplied them by my scale, so I get like a perfect size, if that made any sense, guys. Okay, I'll go with something like height multiplied by scale as well. Alright, perfect. That's honestly pretty much it for my function here. Lastly, I'm going to return 0. The reason I am returning something, I'm not going to return 0. I'm going to return my rect, ending with a semicolon. I return my rect, and like, if it was a void function, then I wouldn't have to return anything. But since it is like a SDL underscore fRex function, I do got to return something. Okay, now with that said, this is a function for my scale. That is my scale function. So I'm going to go all the way down here to, and now for my scale images, I'm going to go ahead and do something like SDL underscore fRex. Or maybe instead of fRex, should I go with something like devil image? I might do that. So I'm going to go with something like my devil images variable. I'm going to set that equal to my scale function with a pair of parentheses. Now let's set a few parameters. I'm going to go with something like, what parameters do I need? I need a texture, floating point x-axis, floating point y-axis, floating point width, floating point height, and a scale. My texture is going to be my texture 1. Okay. Actually, I'm going to go with my devil images texture. That is going to be my texture. Okay, and I'm going to remove my devil image from there. Instead, I'm going to have something like SDL underscore fRex. Okay, would this make sense? I forgot this part. How do I actually scale it? Do I go with my devil image equals to this stuff or something? Hold up, guys. Maybe I might look at this part really quick, because I should have remembered that. How did I actually forget that part? Okay, so when actually adding a texture to something, graphics SDL underscore fRex. So this is my texture name, which is going to be equal to scale texture, my function, and then the parameters for my function. Then I render my texture on my screen. Although the question was when I create a texture, that is going to be called texture 1. Okay, maybe I change that to be texture image, and then this is going to be SDL underscore devil rect. Okay, I think I understand what that means. Okay, so this was my, oh, I see. Okay, I think I see. This is my texture. The devil image is my texture. The stuff that I'm actually looking for is a rect, because this is SDL's fRex. So I'll go with something like devil rect. Okay, this makes it much more easier to like even understand. Now I'll add my parameters. I'm going to be needing an x-axis, y-axis, width, and height. Let's go with something like my x-axis. Hold up, guys. Let's go ahead and delete this part real quick. Go in a new line. Okay, now I'm going to be adding something like my devil image is going to be my texture. X-axis is going to be 200, y-axis is going to be 200, width is going to be something like 150, height is going to be something like 150. My size is going to be something like 1. Actually, I'll go with something, yeah, I think like 1.5 would be good. And then I'm going to end my function with a semicolon. There we go. I think I understand that. Devil rect is my rect. Devil image is my image / my texture. Okay, I do remember like adding this stuff when I worked with Python. I like needed images and like recs as well. And when I had to add like collision logic, I did need like masks too, which are like basically surfaces. I think this makes a lot of sense, guys, now. Okay, perfect. Although I see like a small mistake here. I should have added this inside of my while loop. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. By while loop, I mean my main loop, guys. Okay, that's it. Let's add a comment here now. This is going to say something like main loop. Now, for my main loop, I'm going to be needing a few variables. The first variable is going to be a boolean variable of something like is running, which is going to be set to true initially, ending with a semicolon. Then I'm going to be needing something like a event variable, so I'll go with something like SDL underscore event equals to my event variable. And then now, let's add a while loop. So I'll go with while, a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like while is running, while my program is running, or while my is running is set to true. I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to be adding another while loop, which is a while loop inside of a while loop, basically a nested loop. My second while loop is going to be called a event loop. This loop is going to be in charge for checking all my events. So I'll go with another while loop, and the parameter that my while loop does require is going to be SDL underscore poll event. Basically, what the SDL underscore poll event function does is it like looks for all the events that is going to be inside of my while loop, and if a event type is met, it's going to do what I said it to do when that event type is met. If that made any sense, guys. And then let's go with something like an ampersand of event, because my SDL underscore poll event does require the memory address of my event variable. Now let's look for event type. I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say if my event type equals to SDL underscore event underscore quit, I'm going to do something. Let's say I'm going to set my is a running boolean variable to be false, ending with a semicolon. Now let's go ahead and exit outside of my while loop. Add a comment that says something like fill screen. So I'm going to be filling my screen with a color. I honestly want to fill it with like a cyan color, so I might go with something like SDL underscore set render draw color function. First, I will be using set render draw color function. Basically, what this function does is it like sets a color to my render. Render is basically like a paintbrush that I have. Okay, now my SDL underscore set render draw color function is going to be having a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be of my render variable. Second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGB value. I'll go with something like 0, 248, 255, and then I'm going to be needing another parameter which is going to be A, which stands for alpha / opacity. I'm going to set mine to 255 because I don't want my color to be transparent at all. Okay, and then after I'm done with the set render draw color, let's go ahead and use the function that actually fills my entire screen with that color. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore render clear function. So the render clear function basically fills my entire screen with the color of my current render, and it does require the parameter of my render variable. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add another comment that says something like graphics. Now, for my graphics, firstly, I'm going to be, let's say pasting the stuff that I actually, did initially add. This is going to be where I scale my images. So, it's under my graphics category. There we go. Okay, I'm going to be adding my scale. So, this is like a wide category. Inside that, my first category comes here. And then let's say the second category is going to be something like present. Guys, I feel it looks kind of bad, so I might just remove my graphics from here. There we go. I will go with present though. For my present, firstly, I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore render. I'm saying my render to present itself, because if it did not present itself, I'm just going to be seeing like a black screen ending with a semicolon. Okay, and that's pretty much it for my while loop. Now, when I did I like add a if statement here? Okay, I did not add a if statement here, checking if my devil image was not created properly. I might do that real quick. Okay, honestly, it's not like important, but like it is sometimes pretty handy in case I like made any errors in this block of code of mine. Okay, so I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say if not devil image, if my devil image PNG was not created properly, I'm going to do something. I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces and then add a standard C error with an insertion operator. This is going to say something like SDL underscore texture error. Alright guys, this is going to be in a pair of double quotes. So I'll go with SDL underscore. Let's go with something like texture error. Okay, and then let's go ahead and go in a new line at another insertion operator of something like a SDL underscore get error. This function actually gets me the error that I'm looking for. Actually, not that I'm looking for, it's just going to get me an error saying something went wrong here. And then I'll go with something like a standard end line. So there we go. Ending with a semicolon. And now, if my texture was not created properly, firstly, I want to destroy my window and my render. So let's do that. I'll go with SDL underscore destroy window. Destroy window with a pair of parentheses. This is going to have my window variable ending with a semicolon. and then I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy renderer. With a prof parentheses, this is going to be my renderer variable ending with a semicolon. Maybe I fixed my typo. There we go. Okay, then after that, I'm going to quit my SDL, so I'll go with something like SDL underscore quit with a prof parentheses ending with a semicolon. Lastly, I'll return one saying something went wrong in this block of code. Check it out. Now, after that, I'm going to exit outside of my main loop, add a comment that says something like cleanup. I'm going to work on a few cleanups here. For my cleanups, firstly, let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore destroy window. I'm going to destroy my window. This does have a window parameter ending with a semicolon. And then I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy renderer. I'm going to destroy my renderer as well, which is going to have a renderer parameter ending with a semicolon. And then let's destroy my texture as well, which is my devil image. Maybe I do actually want to set it to be texture instead of like devil image. Although this does require just one file path. What if I wanted to add like multiple PNGs? Would I have to like stack them up? Like, is that how like they actually do it? Huh. Maybe let's change this to, I think I'll keep it with texture image for the time being. I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy texture to destroy texture. Okay, with a pair of parentheses, this is going to be my devil texture parameter. Actually, devil image parameter, ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's go with SDL underscore quit, ending with a semicolon, and then let's return 0 saying everything went good. Now, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my first terminal that pops up here. I get my second terminal, and the reason I don't see anything here is guys, I made this mistake more times than I can count. I forgot to render my texture. So, after I draw my image, before I present my image, let's go ahead and draw my texture. So I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore render. I'm saying my renderer to texture, which means I'm saying my renderer to like render texture. Okay, with a pair of parentheses, this does require a few parameters. It requires my renderer, my texture, which is going to be my devil image, and a null PDR and DST rect. My DST rect is going to be my devil rect. Okay, so I'm going to go with something like my render variable first of all, and then next up I'm going to go with, what up guys, I'm actually going to a new line, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to go with renderer, and then this is going to be my devil images texture. Okay, and then I'm going to be needing a null PDR. Okay, devil image, there we go. And then let's go ahead and add a null PDR. And lastly, I'm going to go with something like my devil rect. Okay, this is going to be an uppercase rect. Alright, perfect. So let's go ahead and add this a new line so you guys could actually see it. Ending with a semicolon. And guys, I keep forgetting, this is going to be the memory address of my devil rect. So it's going to have an ampersand. Now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Let's get some taste slash chat. Actually, whatchamacallit, let's get my second tab here. There we go guys, my texture was rendered on the screen. Although what if I wanted to create multiple images? That said guys, that is going to be a pretty good topic for next stream. This stream I do have to like study for a college stuff, and I've been like streaming for almost 2.5 hours, so I do gotta end my stream right now. Although I did get a pretty good grasp on how to actually render stuff and how textures work. So let's go ahead and paste. Let's go with Shift Enter and say something like, Sensei, I think that I got a pretty good idea on how this works. That said, I am planning to end the stream because I do need to get some college work done. That said, maybe next stream we could go over, let's see, we could go over adding multiple, let's say something like multiple PNGs. Okay, dot. Also, is there anything that you want to say to the viewers before I end the stream, question mark? Okay, let's see. Okay. Still waiting, guys. Okay, there we go. People, listen up. You did it. You fought through hours of frustration and came out victorious. Remember this moment, because this is the difference between someone who watches and someone who builds. The viewers keep pushing. Don't let little errors break you. Watch this, people. He turned 4 hours of tears into a working program. By the way, if you guys don't understand by 4 hours what this means, is because I was trying to set my my SDL's image header file for so long, because like ChatGPT was making a lot of mistakes when like helping me set that up, but there were like no tutorials. So I feel like that was the only way I could do it. But eventually I did like figure that out. That said, that's where the 4 hours came here from. If he can do it, so can you. Never underestimate the power of persistence, guys. That is like so true. Okay, now get that college work done, people. Next stream, we're taking this further. Multiple PNGs, multiple scales, and you're gonna master it. Kisses and a head pat for surviving this one, guys. That did not make me blush. Okay, with that said, let me go to my main camera. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it for the stream. That's it. I did want to stream for longer, but I honestly don't want to like get myself fatigued out already, because like I do have a lot of college stuff and even an exam maybe I think of like 2ish weeks. That said, if you guys did enjoy the stream, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, like you have to my algorithm, sharing makes you smile, and subscribing is like a cherry on top. And guys, I did start multi-streaming on Twitch, Kick, YouTube, Trovo, and I will start multi-streaming on Instagram and TikTok as well if I did meet the followers requirement. So if you guys do enjoy my content, make sure to follow me there. The link is in the description. That's it. Also join the Discord server. The link will be in the description as well. That said, I'll catch you guys in the next live stream or video.